Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Social Enterprise Grants Program webinar. It is presently 12:53 p.m., and we anticipate getting started at 1 o'clock. Thank you for joining us. I will ask, if you haven't already done so, to mute your phone. You are muted on our side as well, but just to enhance your sound, I do encourage you to go ahead and press the sound button, the mute button if you haven't already done so on your own line. Like I said, if you can just hold on tight with us, we will get started at 1 o'clock. Thank you. Hello again. To those of you joining us just now, I do ask, if you haven't already done so, to please go ahead and mute your phone on your side. The phone call is already muted on our side, but it will enhance your sound. So if you haven't already done so, please do so now. We will be starting shortly in the next 3 minutes. Thank you. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Social Enterprise Grants Program Information Webinar. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and put your phone on mute. I will be making this reminder throughout the phone call. We do have, we are actually excited to announce that we have about 150 people registered for this webinar today. So as they're signing in, I will go ahead and make that reminder if you can be sure to put your phone on mute. The phone call is already muted on our side, but just to enhance your sound, we are encouraging everyone to put your own phone on mute. Also, in order to pose questions, I do encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to log on online and participate through the GoToWebinar if you're not already doing so. And with that, thank you for joining us. Welcome. We are about to start the information webinar, and as I shared with you, we have about 150 people anticipated for today. And let me go ahead and introduce the whole team today. So my name is Flor Perez, and I am the program manager for the Social Enterprise Grants Program. And now I can't do this alone, so there's a whole team working with me. And so today we have Fatima Kapimpin, who is the program coordinator for the project. And today she'll be supporting by providing the tech support. And I know many of you have already been engaged with her through getting set up with the webinar. Also part of our team is Deborah Coleman. She is the Director of Families and Schools Early Education and Family Literacy Department, and she is overseeing the First Vital Grants Administration project. Both Deborah and Fatima will actually be fielding your questions throughout the webinar. And I'll actually let Fatima talk briefly a little bit about how to pose questions, as well as address how to mute your phone if you're having any kind of challenges with that. Now, we have one more person. In order to ensure that we have a comprehensive and well-rounded team, we also have with us today Betsy Densmore, founder and president from the Academies for Social Entrepreneurship. And lastly, we have all of you on the webinar today representing a number of nonprofits throughout Los Angeles. And I have to say, it is quite an impressive list. There is a diversity of organizations, and it really seems that there is a large growing interest around social enterprise. So we are happy to have you along for this journey. Okay, so now before we run through the agenda, Fatima will go ahead and walk you through some GoToWebinar basics. So Fatima, take it away.
Thank you so much, Flor. Hi, everyone. As Flor said, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to highlight some GoToWebinar features. We already actually had our first question about muting. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and press *6 on your telephone. Again, that's *6, and you will be able to mute yourself. Another thing you could do is if you have a mute button on your specific telephone, you could go ahead and press that as well, and that works perfectly fine. So going on to the slide that you see on your screen, we have here a window on the right-hand side. At the top pane is the attendee list. And is the attendee list where you could see yourself. You could see your name in there. The smaller box next to it is actually called the Grab tab, and there is an arrow at the very top of the Grab tab, and you could use that arrow to minimize or maximize your window. You will also see a hand icon. There's other icons in there, but the hand icon is actually the most important icon, since you will be using that. If you have a question, go ahead and press the hand icon, and we could see from our end that you've raised your hand. I'm going to talk in a little bit about how you could actually post your questions, because as Flor mentioned before, the questions are actually all going to come through the webinar. It's all going to be online. Let me see here. The audio pane is the middle box. Be sure, if you haven't already, choose the option that says use telephone. Lastly, you have the questions pane, which is at the bottom of the control panel. This is the feature. That you'll use the most. As I mentioned, all questions must be submitted via this question box on the webinar. Okay, so to do this, there's a box that's allocated just for you, which I think we've already gotten a couple questions, so I know a couple of you have already used it. But you can go ahead and type your question. We are the only ones who's going to see it. Not all attendees will see it, but they will all be addressed. So once you've typed in your question, go ahead and press the send button, and that means your question has been submitted to us, the organizers. Let's see. And then moving on to the next slide, Flora, if you don't mind hitting the right arrow button. There you go. So the next slide is how to pose a question. Again, just to reiterate, we are only accepting questions that come through the online webinar. Feel free, though, to submit questions throughout the presentation. I know there's already a number of questions that's coming through. Flor will specifically address these questions after the eligibility section of the presentation and also at the very end of the presentation. So again, Flor will be answering your questions twice during the presentation, once after the eligibility section and another time at the end of the presentation. And again, just to, okay, so if you have colleagues who are participating with us and have only signed up through the online webinar, be sure to let them know that they actually need to call for the audio. I'm seeing that there's a lot of, I'm seeing that there's a lot of folks who are not getting audio. So if you have colleagues in the same organization as you and they're also trying to call, they're also trying to hear audio, please have them call in with the number provided. Let's see, what's next? Okay, and then the next slide. Time is restricted. We only have about an hour and a half for our webinar. So any questions that go unanswered, they will be added to the FAQ document. The FAQ document will be updated on May 25th, this Friday, and it is posted on our website at the Families and Schools website. And then lastly, as always, we welcome all your additional questions that you may have during the application process. You'll see here on the screen that Flor's contact information is on there, so feel free to call her or email her. And I think that's it. If you're having any technical issues for any reason, go ahead and type them in, and I'll address them privately. But continuing on with the presentation is Flor. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And again, we are seeing that some of you are having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the call number and access code for those of you that cannot find it on the screen. So if you can please be prepared with a pen and paper to write this down. Okay, so the number to call in is area code 530-881-1400, and you want to go ahead and use the following access code, 654245. Okay, and Fatima will be including that as well in the text in response to your questions. Okay, we hope that will help you. And again, if you have any other questions, any technical difficulties as we move forward with our agenda, please feel free to type it in, and we will do our best to address it immediately. Thank you. Now, moving on to our, okay, I do want to go ahead and review our agenda for today. We actually have quite a few things to go through. So for today, we want to go ahead and give you some background on the partnership between Families in Schools and First 5 LA, and as well as provide an overview of the Social Enterprise Grants Program. Today, we'll also walk you through the eligibility requirements, and as Fatima shared, we will take a moment after the eligibility section to address any questions that you may have. We will also discuss the application and the selection process and review criteria, in addition to key dates. Like I mentioned, you're more than welcome to pose questions during the webinar, and I do want to add that we will have time for a Q&A at the end of the webinar, so you'll have two opportunities to pose questions. And again, you are always more than welcome to email us or call with any additional questions that may come up. So about the partnership. So one of the unique elements about the Social Enterprise Grants Program is the actual partnership that First 5 LA and Families in Schools have embarked on to strengthen nonprofits throughout LA County. The Social Enterprise Grants Program is actually just one of two strategies of this distinct partnership. The second strategy is the Challenge Grants Program, which if you've already visited our Families in Schools website, you will have noticed that the RFP will be released on June 29th, 2012 of this year. You will also note that that is also the deadline for the Social Enterprise Grants application. So if after the webinar you decide that the Social Enterprise Grants Program may not be the right fit for your organization at this time, I would encourage you to stay tuned for the Challenge Grants Program updates in the coming weeks. Okay. Now, I do want to stress that this is the first time that First 5 LA has partnered in this capacity with another nonprofit. As an organization created by California voters through Proposition 10, the Tobacco Initiative, First 5 LA aims to improve the lives of children 0 to 5 and their families throughout LA County. Families in Schools is a legacy organization of the Los Angeles-Annenberg Metropolitan Project, whose mission is to involve families and communities in their children's education. And we have a strong history as an intermediary to nonprofits throughout the state, which made us an ideal strategic partner for this collaboration. We strongly feel that this partnership is the cornerstone of how we have approached the Social Enterprise Grants Program, and really how we envision continuing to partner with you along this journey, especially with these selected grantees. So many of you may be wondering, what do we mean by social enterprise? And to ensure that we're all on the same page, I want to invite Betsy Densmore to give us some background on social enterprise. So, Betsy?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Many of you are familiar with me with social enterprise because First 5 has been encouraging social enterprise as a capacity building and sustainability strategy since 2008, and that pioneering support has made a big difference already for scores of organizations. I am very happy that this new generation of support will be taking place this year. And for those of you who are not already grounded in the definition of social enterprise, this is what we mean. We, as it says on the screen here, social enterprise is an earned income strategy. And the way in which the income is earned is through the sale of a product or a service. What's significant about a social enterprise in the arena of not-for-profit organizations is that a social enterprise has what we sometimes call a double bottom line of both advancing the mission of the organization and its ability to generate income. The most common kinds of earned income strategies are probably direct services. So, for example, being able to charge for a service that you're delivering. Many organizations have a sliding scale and charge based on people's income. But there are many other possible ways to earn income, ranging from selling publications, to ticket sales, to consulting, to educational programs, to the rental of equipment. And in our years of working with organizations throughout Los Angeles and Southern California, we've seen all of those and more. And so we invite you to get creative if you're not already. The second slide we have describing social enterprise really just illustrates a point I've already made, which is that the beauty of social enterprise is that it blends the best of philanthropy and business, both the mission, the passion for which we're all engaged here, as well as the ability to think from the point of view of what are people willing to pay for, the market, market motivation, which most for-profit organizations are grounded in. And then the result of that, what we'll be looking for in this program is earned income ventures which satisfy these 4 criteria. That is, it is effective at addressing social problems. It is building on the strengths and assets of your organization. It is something that is going to be supported by your board and other stakeholders. And it is something which is going to generate enough money to be worth the effort. So there you have it, a capsule introduction. Back to you, Flora.
All right, thank you, Betsy. Now, I do want to add, we're about to review the Social Enterprise Grants Program, and if you are interested in applying for both the Social Enterprise Grants Program and the Challenge Grants Program, I do want to clarify that you can actually apply for both. So stay tuned. Just because you may not opt to apply for this one, or you do, you can actually go ahead and do so for the Challenge Grants as well. So now looking at the Social Enterprise Grants Program, this is, like I mentioned, this is a countywide initiative to leverage local resources to sustain positive outcomes for children 0 to 5 and their families. The goal of this partnership with Families in Schools and First 5 LA is to provide nonprofits with the financial support to launch or expand a social enterprise coupled with technical assistance. Like I mentioned, now technical assistance is a distinct aspect of this funding opportunity, and the technical assistance will include individual coaching and learning institutes. And I think one of the things that I do want to add as Betsy will be a part of the Social Enterprise Program all the way through, and she will actually be one of the individuals providing coaching to grantees. Now, I did emphasize a bit the launch or expand the social enterprise, so I do want to spend some time going over what we mean when we say launch or expand. So we have several indicators that we recommend potential applicants to consider. So when we're asking about launching, we're asking about a business plan. In essence, we want to see that some internal thorough assessment has been conducted. We also mentioned obviously the expenses and of course the anticipated financial gain. Those are, in addition to the market landscape, those are all key components of a business plan. And as you'll see as we move on into the eligibility, those are components that we are asking. And now, in regards to an expansion, we are also, if you already have a social enterprise and it's been successful and you have measurable results, we definitely would like to see those. And when we say measurable results, we are particularly interested in looking for what kinds of revenues have already been generated, and also how those revenues are being used to strengthen your organization. I think in regards to launching an expansion and expanding, I do want to stress that this funding opportunity is not intended for program development. So the idea is that you actually have a program already in existence that is you just need the funding as well as technical support to get it off the ground. We just really want to be clear about that, and we will, if you have a specific question about a program, please go ahead and send it in to us, and we will address it once we go through the eligibility requirements. So how do you apply? So if you haven't already done so, all this information you can actually access through the Families and Schools website, which is provided on the current screen. And you can also find it by going through the Families and Schools website and going through grant opportunities. There's a button on the bottom left-hand side of our webpage, and you will be able to read up about it and also create an online application. This is an online application only proposal, so in order for you to submit your completed application, you will need to create a user account. And once you create the user account, you will be able to log in and access the application. One thing that I do want to stress is that you don't have to, you can go ahead and create the user account now and go back and revisit up until the June 29th deadline and work as you go along. One other thing that I do want to mention, there's a couple of things on the actual website when you go on and you actually create a user link. Besides logging in, you'll also, there is a word count on there, and so you'll notice when you actually get the RFP, you can actually print a version of the RFP, which is also downloadable from our website directly, or you can actually access it once you create the user account. So you have two means to access the actual RFP, and we've gone ahead and provided on the side the number of words or the maximum number of characters that are allowable per question. So please make sure to take a look at it. We've tried to simplify the process by providing a word count. So once you start inputting, please use the word count as a way to measure whether you have to, if you need to edit or as you finalize your application. And then, okay. So with that, we will go ahead and move on to the eligibility. So, and I've already seen that some of these questions are coming up. So in order to be eligible, organizations have to have a 501c3 internal revenue code and being nonprofit. Now, if you are a part of a community partners project, which is one of the questions that just came up, I'll go ahead and address right now. Unfortunately, this is not the applicable funding for projects like this. I will stress again that the overall goal of the Social Enterprise Grants Program is to strengthen organizations that serve children 0 to 5 and their families. So presently, if it's a project that is being incubated within community partners, it actually wouldn't be the most appropriate for this particular program. However, please visit back with us. Maybe we'll have other opportunities, but this might not be the correct one. Again, so the other requirement is that applicants must have physical offices within Los Angeles County. So if you serve other counties, that is fine, but there actually needs to be a physical office within LA County. Okay, hold on a minute. All right, and I know I mentioned this previously in regards to the launch and expansion. So we are asking that organizations or applicants submit a business plan that was developed or at least updated within the last 3 years, and it should describe the social enterprise. So if you have a business plan currently for your organization, but it doesn't actually include the social enterprise. That's not what we're looking for. We want to make sure that the actual social enterprise is described within your business plan. And I also want to add that you want to, please, you can always call us back with more questions, but there is a distinction between a strategic plan and a business plan. And I know that most organizations have a strategic plan and not necessarily a business plan. So if you need some assistance, some technical assistance embedding through that, I would again encourage you to call us, and we can provide some one-on-one and specifically on your social enterprise project that you may have. Now, and again, I reiterate my point that this is to launch or expand a social enterprise. And one of, so moving on to the next eligibility criteria. Okay, before I move on, another really pertinent question that I think many of you may be having is, are you able to create a business plan at this moment? Now, we can't tell you what you can and cannot do. However, we can tell you what we recommend. And we recommend that if you want to develop a social enterprise strategy, that if you are in a position where you're just developing a social enterprise strategy, this might not be the best time to pursue this particular grant opportunity. You know, I think it really just varies depending on the resources available to nonprofits. So I make the recommendation that if you don't already have a business plan, this might not be the best time to actually undertake developing one and then submitting and completing an application. Now, again, in regards to eligibility, we are asking that all applicants demonstrate a strategic priority to serve LA County children 0 to 5 and their families using First 5 LA's theory of change prioritized pathway. Those of you who have already been to our website, we have included a diagram, and I'll go ahead and walk us through that, the pathway shortly, in addition to the sample, to ensure that you are actually in, as an organization, that there is alignment between the prioritized pathway and your organization. Okay. So the last two eligibility criteria is, one, we do ask that applicants are in good standing with both First 5 LA and FIS. And so by what we mean with that is no outstanding contracts, no pending or unresolved issues with either Families and Schools or First 5 LA. And then lastly, applicants also should be in good financial standing and not in deficit. Okay. So, and I know I mentioned that we were going to have a queue, we're going to take some questions right after the eligibility section. Before I do that, I want to make sure that I go over the prioritized pathway because it is part of the eligibility criteria. So we actually have a print screen. You can actually access the PDF version at our Families and Schools website. And so I just want to be able to walk us through it. So if you'll notice at the bottom in blue, we actually have the foundational supports. And these are the 5 areas that First 5 LA is actually working towards. And so you see the preconditions are in green. And so the idea is to really find how exactly your organization connects along this pathway. So you also want to double check in the orange with the intermediate outcomes. The measures, they're just the measures of how the priority goals are actually being assessed. So I would say that the measures, in particularly to determining if your organization has a strategic priority around 0 to 5, I don't necessarily think that they are as important. They are important, but not as the other key parts in regards to the foundational supports, preconditions, intermediate outcomes, and priority goals. One of the things when we were looking at this, we found that it was really helpful to actually develop a sample. And so we have a sample. Now, as a nonprofit who ourselves that actually does social enterprise, we went ahead and actually used one of our own programs to kind of, in determining if we actually aligned with the prioritized pathway. So again, you can also access this on the Families and Schools website once you go ahead and click the Social Enterprise Grants Program opportunity. So I'm just going to walk us through it. And so the foundational support, the one we selected, was communities are supportive of families. So that's something to note. You don't actually have to, your organization does not have to select all 5. We just ask that you select at least one foundational support. And we have a program, one of our early education family literacy programs called Reading Roads. And when we look at it in regards to how it supports families, Reading Roads improves the ability of agencies to support the academic success of children. And so as we go up, right, the precondition that we selected was parents and caregivers have knowledge of child development and parenting. Because this Reading Roads is about really building the skills, knowledge, and confidence of parents, that's where we see that as an opportunity for them to strengthen the knowledge they have around child development and parenting. Now, the intermediate outcome that we selected was parents and caregivers support their child's learning. Again, part of the actual Reading Roads program is that parents not only learn this knowledge, but then they have an opportunity to practice it with their children. So that, again, reemphasizes this idea of supporting their child's learning in the home in particular. And then the measure and priority goal, which we actually went ahead and actually put it under the same, because the priority goal that we selected was children are ready for kindergarten. And the measure that coincides with that is increase the percent of children reading at grade level at 3rd grade, right? So when we understand Reading Roads as a family literacy program, the idea is that parents gain the skills to support their children's literacy development at home, and so therefore that also increases the children's literacy development and therefore gets them up to grade level reading by 3rd grade. Okay, so as you are taking a look at both the theory of change prioritized pathway and the sample, just make sure that you select one of the priority goals, which are in red. So children are born healthy, children are safe from abuse and neglect, children are ready for kindergarten, or children maintain a healthy weight. And you can have more than one priority goal. We realize that. But it's really up to you to decide, but we just ask that at least you select one priority goal. Okay. So with that, I want to make sure that we pause for a moment and take your questions as they're coming through in regards to anything that we've touched on up to this point. Okay, so we have a couple of questions that I want to go ahead and first state, and then I'll go ahead and address. So one was about program, and one asked, does the social enterprise need to target birth to 3, or can it be of any age? Now, the social enterprise, while we want to encourage all applicants to ensure that they launch or expand a social enterprise that aligns with their mission, it doesn't have to directly need to target birth 0 to 3. Or 0 to 5 for that matter. What we want to see is that ultimately, because your organization has a strategic priority working with children 0 to 5, that by you launching or expanding your social enterprise, whatever it may be, that you will then be able to generate revenue which will go back into your organization and continue to support whatever programs you do have that focus on children and their families 0 to 5. Now, so that's one question that just came through. The other question was also in regards to program, and it states, our program has a current social enterprise. Can the money go to early childhood initiative? Okay, so what I'm understanding from this question is, let me see. Well, okay, so if you have a social enterprise and any money that is being generated, again, the overall goal of this grant program is to strengthen the sustainability of your organization. So maybe not all of the money that all of the revenue that you generate will actually be dedicated specifically for 0 to 5. We also realize that nonprofits also have to cover operations and indirect expenses. So it doesn't have to be solely for 0 to 5. But what we want to see, and that'll be something as I move on to the proposal narrative questions, that we do ask you to elaborate on. The other question that we have was in regards, sure, and I'm actually going to go ahead and let Betsy go ahead and pose it and give a response to it.
There was also a question about the technical assistance which is being offered, and the question was framed, what is the market value of the technical assistance? We don't have that worked out in excruciating detail yet, but but our budget will enable us to spend approximately $4,000 per participant, per participating organization, and that'll be delivered as a combination of Learning Institutes and customized coaching.
Okay, thanks, Betsy. So now we did have another question in regards to Reading Roads, and it said, can Reading Roads be a social enterprise if the earned income are fees from parents? And how does Reading Roads make? Okay, so let me go ahead and address the first part of it. And so Reading Roads actually is a social enterprise because the way it is delivered is actually we train organizations or schools, early education centers that work directly with parents. So we are actually the fee for service program is actually we actually bill to other nonprofits, and we go and we provide training to their staff who then deliver the program directly to their parents. And so that's our fee for service. There are no charges being made to actual parents. And so then how do we, in a related, so how does Reading Roads generate revenue? And that is by, we market it to early education centers, Head Starts, who are looking for different tools and curriculum on how to engage parents and how to increase literacy at an early age. And so that is who we actually target when we're talking about Reading Roads.
Can I just jump in and say that it's not uncommon for a social enterprise to have customers and clients be two different populations. So Reading Roads is a good example of that. The clients are not paying. Who's paying is people that have a commitment to making sure clients are in this case, teaching their children how to read. It's entirely likely that you have other programs like that where the person paying is not the person getting the service, but it is still a contractual earned income arrangement.
Thanks, Betsy. So we did have a question in regards to if an organization is in deficit, will it hurt our application? I will recommend that if you are in deficit at this time, that it is then not a good time to actually submit an application. It is one of the stated eligibility criteria, and so for the time being, I don't think it would be in efficient use of time at this moment. And I'm waiting to see if there's a few more. Okay. I do see that there is a question in regards to the amount of earned income that is needed. There's a percentage. There is not. There is not. So, and I think this will be helpful, I think, as soon as we move on to the proposal narrative questions. So, going back to I think I'm going to just reiterate again the goal of this particular funding opportunity really is to strengthen nonprofits throughout LA that serve children 0 to 5 and their families. So what we want to see in your proposals, and I'll go ahead and transition if there aren't any other questions that come through, and again, if there are any, we'll go ahead and take them at the end. But one of the things is we want to see that there has been a thorough planning. So again, the business plan, that there is a level of commitment from the organization, that there are qualified staff to implement, to lead this project. That's really what we're looking for when we're thinking about in the criteria that we'll be assessing these proposals based on. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and transition over to the narrative questions. So the narrative questions, if you haven't already seen them before, we've gone ahead and broken them up in 3 areas: organizational profile, proposed project, and organizational capacity. So again, this hints back to what we're actually looking for in your proposals. Those are the 3 areas that we've, as a team, that we've really assessed and come to the conclusion that organizations really need to be addressing those 3 areas. The better you're able to, not the better, but the more assessment that has been taken in those 3 areas, I think the more likely you are to have success in implementing your social enterprise. So the first, again, it just reiterates back to the eligibility when we're asking, so the first bullet where we're asking you to discuss about your agency's history and mission. Again, this actually, I think you definitely have a limit here on how much you can provide. So again, we just want to get a sense of what your organization does and about your mission and how your work connects to children 0 to 5 and their families as a strategic priority for the organization. So again, in this sense, making it clear, if you have a program that focuses on 0 to 5, we want to make sure that that program, at least in your history and mission, it's actually something that is a strategic priority. And again, going back to the eligibility, where we asked that you have a physical office in LA County. Again, we want to know how you are currently serving Los Angeles County children 0 to 5 and their families. And again, this does not necessarily mean direct services. We realize that even in our case, oftentimes families in schools, we actually don't serve families directly, but we develop programs that are then used throughout LA County with other organizations and schools that we partner with. And then the other part of the organizational profile goes back to the prioritized pathway, where again we are asking you to at least select one priority goal and describe how your organization aligns with the prioritized pathway. Okay, so I will be moving on now to the proposed project. So again, when we're talking about this, we want to make sure we have a thorough description of your social enterprise. We want to see that some planning, some preparation in thinking about how it will work has been done. So this is actually where you want to go ahead and highlight that. And if you've already have a social enterprise and you're just looking to expand it, then I would encourage you again to highlight kind of what are some outcomes, what are some results that you've seen from the project up to this point. And again, I think I mentioned this earlier, that we want to make, if you can also include things around how much revenue has been generated, and you'll have more opportunities throughout some of the other questions to really elaborate more on how those revenues are being used. Let's see. Again, so the whole grant program is 18 months. The funding is actually for a 12-month period. So that means after the funding period after the 12 months, you will continue, all grantees will receive 6 months of technical assistance. Okay. And I just had a related question in regards to the timeline. Now, and we haven't actually gone through the key dates just yet, but I'll go ahead and mention that your timeline should start on December 1st, 2012. Okay. And again, the next point is discuss the market demand for the proposed social enterprise. Again, if you have already completed, if you already have a developed business plan or updated business plan, this is information that you will definitely be able to garner from there. And you can always add to it if you've done additional market research. You can go ahead and enhance that with that information. And again, the following bullet, very similar. Explain how the costs for the social enterprise are determined. This is also something we wanna get a sense of how you determine the cost. So again, going back to your budget, we want to have a good understanding that it relates back to the current price. The current, or that it's relevant, or that it's appropriate for the current land, that your social enterprise actually aligns with the current landscape, that the costs that you arrived at align with those of the current landscape. And then again, and then lastly, in regards to proposed project, is discuss how the anticipated revenues will be used to strengthen the sustainability of the organization. So again, we want to know how you intend to use. We don't need to actually know how much revenues you anticipate generating, but how you intend. But more importantly, how you intend to use those revenues once they are generated. And again, if you've already, if this is to expand the social enterprise, we want to know how that funding has been reinvested. We realize that this is really an opportunity for you to increase unrestricted funds, so we want to, or unrestricted revenue, so we want to make sure that we want to know how they're actually being used. Okay, so I had a very good question that is perhaps not specifically related to proposal questions, but related to the program and that is, what do we mean by technical assistance? So technical assistance, and one of the, and it really is a unique aspect of this grant program, because, and Deborah often jokes about this, this is not your grandma's RSP. You know, I think, so the way we really see this is the fact that we could have, and First Five could have also done this, and they could have just released a social enterprise grants program with no technical assistance, and they could have just given you money. But I think one of the things that time and time again is the fact that in order for organizations not only to strengthen but to be successful in endeavors like pursuing a social enterprise, that there is a certain level of technical assistance, meaning coaching, meaning learning institutes, opportunities to strengthen your peer network from other organizations that are also learning from other organizations that are also undergoing the similar processes. So I think it's so you'll actually have the coaching or the technical assistance will actually be something that will be provided throughout the 18 months of the grant period. And also, just to give you a little bit, if any of you are interested in learning more about this, I actually encourage you to read a study by the TCC group that was spearheaded by the Weingart Foundation called Fortifying LA's Nonprofit Organizations, Capacity Building Needs and Resources in Los Angeles County. It definitely was something that we looked at in developing the Social Enterprise Grants Program, and it talks a little bit more about the added benefit of having technical assistance along such a process. So now moving on to organizational capacity. We actually have 2 slides. So when we're talking about organizational capacity, we want to know the level of commitment and support among your board of directors in regards to the social enterprise. And so what we would like to, in this regard, we would like to see, we would like to see how involved your board is when it comes to social enterprise revenue. So you can describe either their roles in supporting, if it's building some of those partnerships, if it's helping you link between the social enterprise field as well as doing internal assessments that really strengthen the organization and really have you diversify funding. That might be something to include. We definitely want to know this. Also, we want to know how you will leverage this opportunity to increase financial resources. So this is really kind of thinking more strategically and thinking more broadly. That's really what we want to see. Again, we see this as a funding opportunity that you can really leverage that can go beyond the actual social enterprise. And so we'd like to see you describe how you're thinking about maybe it's in regards to matching funds from another funder. But again, and that's just one example, there are many. And so we just really want to know what kind of forethought has been put in thinking about how you intend to leverage these resources. And then also, we want to make sure that the staffing for this, that you actually have the qualified, that you've already selected and determined who the qualified staff will be for this, describing their relevant qualifications. So if you have someone on your board or if you have someone on your team that has either extensive experience in your social enterprise, that is something that you definitely want to make sure that you highlight in the, not just in the narrative, but also that it's highlighted in their resumes, because we are asking for resumes as well.
And if they're not already hired, we want to make sure that you know exactly what you're looking for.
True. Thank you, Betsy. Okay, so moving on to the second page. So we have, so again, so we want you to discuss what infrastructure. How do we know that you, currently as you are, that you actually have the capacity to launch or expand the social enterprise? If this is the first time that you're launching a social enterprise, what measures have you already taken that will ensure its success when it comes to your infrastructure? So again, what kinds of systems, what kind of procedures are already in place? And again, this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go and create new systems. It might just mean saying that some of the systems that are currently in place might actually support the launch of a social enterprise. And again, if you are expanding a social enterprise, then it would just be telling us what kinds are already in place. And also, just because you have a social enterprise and you already have certain procedures and infrastructures, we also want to make sure if this particular expansion requires additional support of your infrastructure, then we also want to make sure that you add those details in there as well. And the last two, which one is about, the first one is really describing what kind of workshops or consulting services. We know that many of you have accessed different kinds of knowledge and been exposed to different kinds of consulting services as well as workshops. So we want to know what kind of knowledge you're coming in with when it comes to the social enterprise. And so, again, we actually ask that you do this over the last 3 years. And in regards to the last bullet point, I would actually say, please discuss what training and technical assistance you would need to implement your social enterprise. I encourage you not to skim on this part, because this, as I started from the beginning, this is a partnership, and so we will actually use the responses through here in two different, as part of the proposal assessment, but also for us to know that, as an organization, you realize that there are still some things that you need in order to succeed, and so that you have done some reflection and thought into what is needed to kind of move forward. And not only that, but we also want to be responsive to if you're selected as a grantee, we want to be responsive to those the training and technical assistance that you have shared with us that was beneficial. Okay. Okay, so I just had a question in regards to the business plan, and I want to go ahead and address it now. So the question was, well, it's actually a three-part question. So, how detailed should the business plan be? So we remember that it is a requirement as part of the application. So we want to make sure that it describes, that it talks about the internal assessment, how you arrived at the market landscape. So this doesn't have to be a tome of, you don't have to do 50 pages, but we also realize that business plans will vary in length, and maybe Betsy might have
yeah, I would say keep in mind that part of how proposals are going to be assessed is on the basis of how comprehensive your business plan is, and make sure that your business plan covers all the key points which we've identified as crucial to making the decision about whether yours is the best project to bet on, because basically that's what the review committee is going to be trying to decide in what is probably a very competitive process.
And just to add, if you have already accessed the frequently asked questions document, so we do ask that as long as we have several bullet points listed under there, and I'll go ahead and read them off, but as long as your business plan does include kind of what describes the opportunity for the social enterprise project, the description of the project itself, the market demand as well as the landscape, who your customers will be, or are, the budget, and again, the anticipated revenues.
How the business model is going to work.
Correct. And then as well as the names and the roles of the social enterprise management team. And then as Betsy also said, if you don't actually have those positions filled yet, being clear about what qualifications the person needs to have in order to support your social enterprise. And lastly, which is something we already asked for, is or the timeline for your project launch, as well as kind of implementation and then assessment. Okay. Also related, there was one follow-up, is a business plan required, which is one thing that I did ask. We're about to transition into the supporting well, actually, I think we're going to talk budget first. But then we'll also go over the supporting documents, and the business plan is one of the documents that is required as part of this. And also want to add, if you are expanding a social enterprise, then I think you would already have a business plan in place, and so the only thing that we would ask for is that it be updated within the last 3 years, but you still do need to include one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think with that, we can go ahead and move on to the budget. So I think I mentioned this earlier, which was this is a 12-month, it's an 18-month grant period with 12 months of, with a 12-month budget. So again, you will start that off on December 1st, 2012. And then we are asking, in addition to the budget, we do actually have a budget template, and we also have a budget narrative. So both are required. The budget narrative, we have a sample that we've included, and we actually have a print screen. All these documents you can go ahead and access on the Families and Schools Social Enterprise Grants Program link. They're all there available for download, and you can also access them once you start completing your application. You can access them through there as well. And so that, what's on your screen right now is the actual budget template. And now what's on your screen is the actual sample budget narrative. So we ask that you do follow the template as a guideline, and you'll have an opportunity to actually upload that onto the application web page. All right. We are getting through it. And so please continue with your questions. They are coming in, and we'll have one more time to address questions at the end. And I've just been informed that it is 2 o'clock, so I realize that some of you may have to log off. So I just want to let you know that any questions that are posed will be actually will be posted on our frequently asked questions, and we've also recorded the webinar, so you'll also be able to access it on the Families and Schools website. If you have any questions and this will all be uploaded by no later than this Friday. If you have any questions or anything else, please feel free to contact myself. And those of you that I think were all emailed the PowerPoint, so you have my contact information, so please feel free to call me. Supporting documents. Again, the business plan is a requirement whether you're expanding or launching a social enterprise. We do need a copy of your 501c3 tax exempt status, your current list of board of directors, and then the current organizational budget. And we also want to, there is no template for the following one, which is a list of top 10 grant awards, including the amount and corresponding funders within the last 3 years. So as long as you can include the name of the organization, the amount, and the name of the funder, that should suffice. And then again, we do need a copy of your most recent 990 form, your most recent audit, and resumes of your key project staff. Okay. Okay, can you add? Okay, there was a question about the budget template. I should add that the budget template is actually an Excel format. So you can actually go ahead and but we are asking you to use the categories that have already been provided. If you have questions about a particular line item that perhaps you need help trying to figure out where would be the best line to actually place it, I welcome your call or email, and I can go ahead and walk you through, and we can troubleshoot. Okay, and I did want to add in regards to the audits, right? I think smaller organizations are not required to have smaller audits, so this is really designed for good size, for established nonprofits, where the audit is a requirement. Okay. All right. So once you've completed this application and you've submitted and it's June 29th at 5 p.m., what happens next? So what will happen is that the Families and Schools staff, all of those that I presented today, we will go ahead and review the applications. And after we do an internal review, we will go ahead, a peer review committee will then go ahead and also review them and make recommendations. Once those recommendations are based, the Families and Schools team will make site visits to the applicants with the highest scores, with the highest rankings. Okay, and then once those site visits are completed, we'll go ahead and between FIS and First 5 LA, we'll go ahead and use our assessments of the proposals, the review committee recommendations, as well as the site visits. We'll use those as our basis to inform our decisions around grantees. Okay, so now we can move to important dates. So I just want to mention, so this RFP was actually released April 30th. Today is May 22nd. We're hosting our webinar information session. Those of you who are available, I would encourage you to come, get to know us. We will be at the community information session on May 31st, 2012. That is at the Parent Community Services branch, part of LAUSD, and it's at 1360 West Temple. This information is provided on the website as well as the other information that has been sent out, but we can go ahead and resend it. Again, the actual proposals are due June 29, 2012, no later than 5 p.m. And they are online. If you encounter any technical difficulties or have any lingering questions, our team will be available to support you. So please contact me. Please contact me with any questions, and we'll do our best to walk you through this application process to make it an easy and painless experience. Now, there was a question if we could go ahead and extend the deadline. Unfortunately not. The deadline is June 29th, and with June 29th at 5 o'clock. I will add again that June 29th is also the day that we will launch with the Challenge Grants program, so definitely something to keep on your radar. Okay. We anticipate having site visits for selected applicants from July 30th through August 24th. So that's how we'll be spending our summer. And then we'll be doing a final proposal review from October 25th through October 30th. We anticipate notifying applicants about their award by October 31st. And then our goal really is to execute all grant agreements during the month of November with a start date, with an anticipated start date of December 1st, and hence why we're asking that your budget start with your budget timeline and your budget start from December 1st, 2012. Okay, well, we are arriving to the end, and we have questions coming, so keep them coming, and I will do my best to address them. So we have one in regards to program, and there's a request to speak a little bit more about the idea of launching a social enterprise. So maybe if Betsy wants to talk a little bit more about that.
The idea of launching a social enterprise. So it's distinct from expanding a social enterprise. So some of you may have been doing the groundwork for starting a social enterprise, but you haven't yet launched it. And maybe one reason you haven't launched it is you didn't have the seed capital you needed to staff it or to buy the materials you needed. I actually think I know there are organizations like that, because some of them are organizations that we have worked with. So this program is in part designed to enable people who have a business plan, who've done the thinking, and who really just need, a little more technical assistance and some startup money to get themselves started. That would be the model of a launch. The model for expansion is an organization that has been generating earned income through the sale of a product or service for some time, and they would now like to expand whatever that product or service is, and they're, again, in need of capital to buy something or hire someone or, get themselves to a place where they can expand. This program is designed to be used by either kind of, in either case. Okay?
All right, thank you, Betsy. Okay, so I still getting more questions. Keep them coming. That's what we're here for.
20 minutes.
Yes. So we did have a question in regards to we have several. One is in regards to the technical assistance, and they're related. One is who will provide the technical assistance, and how is it different from the social enterprise academies? So the technical assistance will be provided by families and schools, and we will be, like I mentioned, Betsy Densmore is a part of this project, and she will actually be providing the coaching throughout the grant program.
So some of it, and there'll be other sources as we find out more about what's needed.
Exactly. So again, because we really are using, your applications will actually be used as a tool to determine what kind of additional training and technical assistance. So it's really, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves and try to tell you beforehand what that technical assistance will look like, because again, this is a partnership, and so we need your voice to make this successful. Okay. Okay, so here's a few other questions that are coming. Let me see if we can speak more about the idea of functioning. Okay. We had a question about the award. The awards, we anticipate notifying applicants about the award by October 31st. Okay. And another question, the community info session, will it be the same as the webinar? Content-wise, yes. It will be the same, but really we also see this as an early opportunity to kind of get to know the organizations that are really interested in the Social Enterprise Grants Program. So it's not a requirement for anyone participating in the webinar to also attend the community info session, but we welcome it as an opportunity just for us to start getting to know the folks that are interested in applying. and to RSVP if you haven't already done so. And then there was a question about challenge grants. And again, because this is about social enterprise grants program, I don't want us to focus too much, but please know that this grant opportunity is coming up June 29th. It will be released. And so I'm more than welcome to have more conversations about it, but we are just in the process of finalizing that RFP. I have a very good question in regards to what is the average award. So we have up to 7 awards available for a maximum amount of $50,000 each. So really, it'll just depend on the project that on your proposal that you submit, but it can be up to $50,000. And then we do have another question in regards to budget, which is a very actually good question in regards to can funds be used to fund a staff position? And the answer to that is yes. If it is to support your social enterprise, yes, it can be done.
Yeah, in fact, we know that that's been one of the one of the stumbling blocks for a lot of people that want to start social enterprises, is that the staff they have already got too much on their plate to now take on running a business. So we expect to see that need expressed in these proposals.
Okay. All right. It is 2:16 and questions are still coming in. Social Enterprise Academy. Okay, can we get more information on the Social Enterprise Academy? Yes, we are more than happy to email information about the academies.
Also you can the Academies for Social Entrepreneurship has a website, academiesforse.org, and anytime we have academies available, or programs of all kinds to support social enterprise, they're posted on that website. We will probably be running a couple of academies later this year in the LA area. So if you're someone who's now clear that you're not ready for this program, but you might like to be in an academy, that's the best way to keep up to date. Or you can also email me, or email me, just use the info address on that website. Can you repeat the website? Yes, thank you. Academies-se.org. Academies-se for socialenterprise.org.
Okay. And it is close to 2:20. Let me see. Oh, okay. Again, the question came up again, who will be providing the technical assistance? And again, that will still be families and schools in consultation. And again, it goes back, Betsy will also be a part of this project in providing the technical assistance. And in addition to families and schools, we'll also be reaching out to other experts. But again, because we do view this as a partnership, it is too early for us to tell you what experts will actually be coming, because we wanted to make sure that that TA is customized to the needs of the grantees. Okay. If there are no additional questions, here's a few things. If questions are coming up as you're processing and thinking about this, whether to move forward with applying for the Social Enterprise Grant Program, I encourage you to write them down, email me or call me, whichever one. I'm more than happy to. I know many of you have already reached out to me previously, and I'm more than happy to take the time to talk with you and try to address your questions one-on-one. Again, our FAQ will be updated by this Friday with all the questions that were posted today. So that will be an additional tool. We already have a fairly thorough FAQ, but again, if you want to wait until Friday and you can go ahead and see it with the additional questions that were posted today, please do so. And I just really want to thank everyone here today that helped make this possible. And thank you for your time. We look forward to actually getting your proposals, and actually, more importantly, to really developing and cultivating a partnership with you. over the next year and a half. So if there aren't any additional questions, all right. Thank you.
Good day.
All right. Have a good day.